Jaya Shiva Shankara Bam Bam Hara Hara Jaya Shiva Shankara Jaya Shiva Shankara Bam Bam Hara Hara Jaya Shiva Shankara Bam Bam Hara 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 Bol Hare Hara 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 Shiva 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 Adi Sundara Shiva Shiva Hara 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 Adi Sundara Hara 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 Hey Parameshwara Daya Karo Hey Parameshwara Daya Karo Hey Parameshwara Daya Karo Jaya Shiva Shankara Bam Bam Hara Hara Jaya Shiva Shankara Bam Bam Jaya Shiva Shankara Bam Bam Hara Hara Jaya Shiva Shankara Hara 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 Bol Hare Hara 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 Bol Hare Shiva 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 Adi Sundara Shiva 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 Adi Sundara Hara 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 Adi Sundara Hara 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 Adi Sundara Hey Parameshwara Daya Karo Hey Hey Parameshwara Daya Karo 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 Oh, oh, sure. To me bhajare mana, to me japare mana, Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram japare mana, to me bhajare mana, to me japare mana, Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram. To me bhajare mana, to me japare mana, Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram japare mana. To me japare mana, Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram japare mana, Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram japare mana, Om Shri Ram. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram japare mana, Shri Ram Jaya Ram. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram japare mana, Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa Re Mana. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram. To me bhaja re mana, to me japa re mana. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. To me bhaja re mana. Jaya Ram Japa. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. Shri Ram Jaya Ram. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. Shri Ram Jaya Ram. Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. Om 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 Shri Ram Jaya Ram Japa re mana. Oh really? Oh, I'll print it. I'll bring it. Okay. Sure.
Part of the subtle body. So we have prana, which is the name for all five of them together, and which separately taken means respiration. The subtle function of respiration that takes place, because we are not in charge of breathing, it takes place. Then we have apana, the ejective force, the vital force associated with ejection of waste. Vyana, circulation, circulatory functions. Samana, digestive functions. Then what else is left? Udana, What is this udana? You can remember it as tick, 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 tick. The countdown. The one that starts counting down at birth. Oh, the number of years? No. We don't come with a allotted number of years, but an allotted number of breaths. That is how one is there. Allotted number of breaths. That's why one is told not to hyperventilate. Yeah. Faster than a cat going through 9 of its lives. You're using up everything. That's why pranayama, you slow down and in 1 hour you breathe once or twice. That should be enough. After long training, years of training, okay? This way you outwit Lord Yama. Really? Not really. Because Lord Yama just says, okay, this person looks at his watch and says, well, this fellow is taking his time. I think I'll go to Starbucks because it'll be a little while, because the person has started to do yoga and pranayama to extend the breaths, to not use up the breaths. Very interesting, very nice. So this udana is the count, the one that keeps count. You will see on the 31st, when we have mantra japa, there is the ashram, thank you. The ashram has a counter, little thing, click, 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 click. It doesn't make like that sound, but tick, 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 tick sound. And then that is usually handed to a Swami. I still don't know why. But the thing is, Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshinamurtaye Mahyam Shriyam Medham Prajnam Prayachha Swaha Tick Tick Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshinamurtaye. So you're supposed to do a number, 1,000. If 100 people do 1,000, it's at the same time, we cheat here and there. So it's 100,000. So this counter is like the udana vayu. Each time you breathe, 1 less. And then finally, udana vayu at the last breath says to the other 4, come on boys, let's get out of here. Here meaning this body. Boys, why? Because they're all masculine words. Pranaha, udanaha, vyanaha, like that. So, come on, and let's just get out of here. Let's come out and let us, vacate this place. The call has come to vacate this place. This is the law. And so, that is how we have, these 5 pranas, and this is what they do when no one is looking. Then there is one question here. For all the pramanas other than pratyaksha to work, there has to be pratyaksha knowledge before. For example, one can only have upama of something that is known from pratyaksha to understand something else. Anumana, arthapatti, anupalabdhi, all require pratyaksha before, but shabda works only because one is svatah siddha, means self-evident, and so can appreciate what is received through the shabda. Is this understanding correct? If so, is that the reason why it has been accepted as a pramana only by astika matas? So first we have to explain this question a little bit so that everybody can enjoy the answer. So pratyaksha means direct perception. So the pramanas, direct perception means what the question is saying is, everything is based on direct perception. Direct perception is at the heart of all the pramanas that we use. All of them are based on direct perception. Like, for example, if I say, I woke up and saw that it had snowed. I saw something white and concluded it had snowed. So the conclusion that it had snowed was predicated upon my seeing all the things in white, A, and then my having seen that prior, and that at that time having been snow, not balls of cotton somebody had strewn on the road. Right? So this means that every pramana works because pratyaksha is there. That's why it's called direct perception. And this direct perception is very important pramana, because upon it is based all the other pramanas. What about Shabda? Well, Shabda is not based on pratyaksha, but it does rely on pratyaksha. I had a very interesting question from somebody in the deaf community. This lady said, you keep saying Shravanam, 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 what about us? We can't do Shravanam, so does that mean we are not ready for Vedanta, or we can't get Vedanta? So I said, well, no, if it is decoded, and if it is, if you have ASL, I explained to her, we also have sign language. It goes like this. And this is Chil Mudra. It is Vedantic sign language. I explained all this to her. I said the first students, of the Lord, Dakshinamurti, understood through sign language. I said, so this is what it is. So, but even that requires pratyaksha of some kind. If not hearing, sight, or something like that. So, but still, Shabda is different. Because it is, for it to work, one has to have what is called Shraddha in the Shastra. Shraddha must be there in the Shastra, and so therefore we look upon the Veda, we look upon the Upanishads, Laghu Vakya Vritti and other such works with a certain attitude of reverence and an open mind. That is why it is only accepted by, matas. Matas means the so-called schools of thought, or what have you. Schools of thought. The so-called various darshanas. It is accepted by them because it is accepted by Astikya matas. Astika doesn't mean, usually we translate it as believer in God. No. Astika means the one who has Shraddha in the Shastra, and the one who understands that to be a means of knowledge, the one who looks upon the Shastra and accepts the Shastra as a means of knowledge with reverence is called Astika. So it's not a surprise that by the Astika group, this is accepted. But those who are called, what are they called? Veda Bahyaha, outside of the Veda, they don't accept the Veda as a pramana, then naturally the Shabda pramana is just noise to them. They will not understand this. Like Vaisheshikas, Naiyayikas, etc., so many things, or even Charvakas. Charvakas means those who, they're kind of materialists of ancient materialists. That is one way to understand Charvaka. Eat, drink, be merry, don't worry, be happy. Max out your credit card, but have ghee with every meal. And don't worry about who's going to pay back, because once this body is consigned to the flames, who is going to return? Nobody. So there is no accountability. They don't accept karma. Why? Because that's all in the Veda. no karma, no karma phala. Nothing. All that is here is objectifiable, and what you see is what you get, and this is what it is. And so like that, there is that is what it is. So that is why the Shabda Pramana is accepted by people who have reverence for the Veda, because it is based on reverence for the Shastra. Otherwise, there is no point. You have to be able to look at this as a means of knowledge that has something to tell you that you do not already know, A, and you can never know through any other means, B. Those two conditions have to be fulfilled. And the third condition for something to be a pramana is that it should benefit you in some way. So there is something to know that you can't know any other way except through it being revealed to you as a means, as a means of knowledge. It reveals something to you, A. And B, you cannot know it any other way except through this way. And it has something meaningful and beneficial, hitam, for you. And what is, what the pramana, Shastra pramana reveals is indeed hitam. Why is it hitam? It is hitam because it is very much keeps samsara away forever. Takes you out of samsara, therefore hitam. It is arthavat, it is meaningful, it's a pursuit that is meaningful. And it is anadhigata. Anadhigata means not available for any other means of knowledge. That's what makes the Shabda Pramana work. Shabda Pramana works because I, as the Pramata, give it permission and validation to work. It's like choosing a therapist, So first you Google the therapist and find out, and then see the ratings and all these things. So you validate the therapist, and then you pay the therapist to validate you. That is how it is. And so same thing with Shabda Pramana. You allow the Shabda Pramana to operate upon you. You choose the Shabda Pramana and then you say, okay, I am going under, so that you can take out the tumors of Atma Ajnana. I choose you to be my surgeon. Cut away the cataracts of ignorance. This is what the Guru Stotra is all about, the second verse. Ajnana timirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. So, ajnana timirandhasya. Timira here is cataract. For the one whose vision is obstructed by the cataracts of ignorance. Ajnana timira. Andhasya. Blinded by the cataracts of ignorance for that person. And who is the teacher? The one who has the scalpel of knowledge. The scalpel is the Upanishad. The Upanishad is the scalpel which removes the knowledge, but the scalpel is too dangerous for everybody. You cannot go and buy a scalpel and say, I'm going to take out my own cataract while looking at this eye with the other cataracted eye. It doesn't work. This is just something waiting for a disaster. So, therefore, even if one is a doctor, one cannot do that. Even in that case, one needs help. And so therefore what? Therefore here also the Guru is the one wielding the scalpel of the book, the Shastra, which is in the form of an oral tradition really. Now book, before it wasn't book. It was all Karna Parampara. And then, so through this, through the scalpel, with the scalpel of knowledge, the ignorance, cataract is removed. Here in the verse, the scalpel is replaced by ointment, anjana, jnananjana shalakaya, with an instrument that applies something to the eyes. In the ancient times, perhaps we have to look at Charaka Samhita and all those places, maybe there was some kind of an ointment that dissolved the cataract. And so the vision that was dark, fragmented, not distorted, not being able to see properly, was restored. Chakshuhu unmilitam yena. Finally the eyes were opened to see that one has been swimming for no reason, even when there is no water. Thinking that one is drowning in samsara, one had been swimming, bobbing up and down and saying glub, 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 but when there was no water at all. No other way of finding out that there is really no water and there is no need to swim, except through this alone. So, this is how the Shabda Pramana works. The knowledge is understood. And that's also the reason why it gets difficult to submit to the Shabda Pramana, because all other means of knowledge, who operates? The Karta operates. Pramata operates. Pramata means knower. But this one has to be operated upon. One is not the agent of this knowledge. And so therefore, it becomes very difficult to submit to some other authority. This is what the ahankara is thinking. Therefore, resistance. Therefore, guru allergy. Shastra allergy. You say the word guru and the fellow breaks out into hives, Happens. And this is all, or it kicks in or activates or stimulates authority issues in a big way. The study of Vedanta. That needs to be resolved. Because whether you like it or not, the guru becomes an authority figure. The Shastra is the authority. And then the ahankara rebels. Why this? Why now? How? Oh, no, this is not happening. I'm in charge. I'm going to read the Upanishads. There are many translations. I'm going to get it that way. And so one misses out because of this. And therefore we have so many other qualifications, Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, all this, Shraddha, Titiksha, Samadhanam, all these things, so many qualifications. Just so that one can quieten these resistances, these sources of rebellion, resistance, diffidence, authority issues, all these things one can take care of. And when those things are taken care of, then the knowledge flows very, very nicely. Please explain the Maya ending in Mamsamaya, Vasanamaya, etc. Yeah. So, there is it's a suffix, mayat. It's mayat, and then the ta at the end goes away due to the Panini rule, one of the Paninian rules. The last consonant goes away. And then what are we left with? Maya. And this Maya has three meanings. prachurye, in the sense of preponderance. Preponderance means there is more, too much of it. And then, supposing you go to a yajna, and then come back, and somebody asks, how was the yajna? Oh, there was so much food, annamayam, full of food. There was so much food. So, meaning there was only food? No, there were other things also. But all I remember is food. Because there was a lot of food. You see, this is prachurya, preponderance. One meaning is like that. This is one example. Then we have the second meaning, vikara, vikararthe. So the vikara, again, if we say annamaya koshaha, koshaha means that which covers, koshavat achchadakatvat koshaha. So that which covers is called kosha. Here, of course, this being Vedanta, we have to say that which as though covers, because nothing covers the Atma. Yeah. Nothing covers the Atma. Atma has made sure of that. And so, just like the eclipse cannot cover the sun, it as though covers the sun. It appears to cover the sun. Similarly, the koshas appear to cover the Atma. They are various areas of errors. Errors at the level of the body are called annamaya kosha. Mistakes made thinking I am as good as the body, etc., etc. So this body, idam shariram annamayam, has got a different meaning than saying the yajna was annamaya. Yajna was annamaya means this festival, this party, wherever I went to, it is annamaya, means a very different thing. It means that there was too much food, there was mostly food, there was a lot of food. And here, annamaya kosha means it's the body is made up of annam, all right, food, all right. But then the idlis you had for breakfast are not, coming out like this under the skin or flesh, right? Yeah. And the donuts are not sitting in the midriff. Right? So what is it? The anna is digested. And then along with all the fluids that one drinks, etc., the anna is digested, it is processed. The carbohydrates, the vegetables, proteins, everything that you eat is digested, processed. And then it comes in the form of muscles, bones, fat, all these things. So here, annamaya means anna vikara. Anna vikara. A modification of food. That is the second meaning. Then we have also a rarely used third meaning, swarthe mayat. Swarthe means in its own sense. Like, there was one Swami Chinmayananda. And so, in the word Chinmaya, Chit, consciousness. So, which meaning are you going to ascribe? Full of consciousness? Prachuryarthe? No. Modification of consciousness, that's not a nice name to give to somebody. Hello, modification of consciousness, please come. Especially to a sannyasi. Okay? And so therefore what? It is in its own sense. It is chit and chit alone. So here in our text, if we look deeply at this question, then we have the first maya, Mamsamayaha, and could be that it is Swarthe, could be also it is a form of Vikara, or it is all flesh, mostly flesh. You can take it anyway. Doesn't matter. In the second one, and what is the second one? Vasanamaya. Yeah, Vasanamaya here definitely Prachuryarthe in the sense of preponderance. So many vasanas, so little time, so many vasanas. Full of vasanas. That is what it is. Yeah. Do you feel a bhajan coming on, Sahadev?
Checking the sound with the new mic, that's all.
Oh, okay, but please come. If you are free and if you can.
Ram, 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 Shri Ram, Ram, Ram. Ram, 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 Shri Ram, Ram, Ram. Dasharathanandana Ram, 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 Dasharathanandana Ram. Dasharathanandana Ram, 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 Dasharathanandana Ram. Kausalya ke Ram, 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 Kausalya ke Ram. Kausalya ke Ram, Ram, Ram. Shri Rama Sita Ram, 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 Shri Rama Sita Ram, Shri Rama Raghubara Ram, 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 Shri Ram, Ram, Ram. Ram, 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 Shri Ram, 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 Ram. Dasharathanandana Ram, Ram, Ram. Dasharathanandana Ram, Ram, Ram. Dasharathanandana Ram. Kausalya ke Ram, 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 Kausalya ke Ram, Ram, Kausalya ke Ram, Ram, Ram. Shri Rama Sita Ram, Ram, Ram. Shri Rama Sita Ram, Ram, Ram. Shri Rama Raghubara Ram, Ram, Ram. Ram, 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 Shri Ram, Ram, Ram. Ram Ram Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram. Jai Shri Ram.
Wonderful. Here are a couple of questions from someone who has been listening online. Nice questions, interesting. Consciousness is unassociated with anything, yet gets reflected in the mind to appear as the doer and the enjoyer. How is this consciousness subject to reflection? That's the first question. And then a follow-up corollary. Who is the one addressed to make efforts to discriminate between the unconditioned, so to speak, consciousness and consciousness reflected in the mind, and to be successful or otherwise in this endeavor? Presumably, it cannot be the doer and enjoyer, just like a reflection in the mirror is blind. So, who is it that needs to be relieved of ignorance, and who is it that enjoys this relief? Fantastic questions. Very nice. So, the first one, going with the first one, consciousness is unassociated with anything. Yes, you are absolutely correct in your observation, and yet gets reflected in the mind to appear as the doer and enjoyer. How? That's why we have these props. This is like consciousness, so to speak, unconditioned by body, mind, sense, nothing. And here it is. But then you put a red cloth behind it. Suddenly we have an angry consciousness, so to speak. Red is the color of, sometimes anger. Or you have, this is the first time I'm using these colors, very nice. Or you change it, you change the backdrop, and suddenly the crystal appears blue without really being blue, or green, or yellow, or my favorite color, orange. Right? Yeah. But crystal is crystal. So this is what is called the as-though association. The as-though association with certain entities makes it take on those qualities again without really taking on those qualities, just like the crystal. You see, there is no other way out of this, because consciousness is unassociated with anything. You are absolutely correct. And to explain this unassociated consciousness, how did it become the jiva, is not something for the faint of heart, because first of all, it hasn't become the jiva. Consciousness has not become the jiva. And neither is consciousness reflected, nor is it conditioned. But then we have to have some props and tools and language. This all defies language, because language is based on ignorance. Otherwise, why will the word Atman decline? Atma, Atmanau, Atmanah. It should have dual and plural. How can it have that? The language is based on our own ignorance and our perceptions in the Vyavaharika or the transactional, or aka the everyday world. So the language is also, it falls short. That's why in the Taittiriya Upanishad we have this wonderful thing. Yato vacho nivartante apraapya manasa saha. The mind and speech are great friends. The mind weaves a story with inner sentences about the outer world, and speech brings it to life. Speech says, I'll be the director, I will produce your play. To the mind. They are the greatest of co-workers. They get along famously. And they set out on a quest to capture consciousness and bring it back. And this is, of course, a setup for failure. They don't know that. Because they think they are strong and they have named everything. From the tiniest amoeba, even all these amoebas and small microscopic creatures, they have names. Even we have named that. We have named huge planets and planets yet to be discovered with this new, what is that called? Telescope that has been launched now. We'll be getting more and more information. And and then everything is named. Kepler B and all these things, Goldilocks planet and all these things, not too hot, not too cold, because we are really messing up our planet, and so we are looking for alternatives all the time. Where shall we go next? It's only 40 light years away, no problem. 40 light years is what? Every second is 186,000 miles light is traveling. So multiply that by 60, you get 1 light minute. Then multiply that by 60, you get 1 light hour. Multiply that by 24, you get 1 light day. And multiply that by 365, that is 1 light year. And then, for good measure, multiply that by 40. It's not like, going somewhere, going to India and coming back. So, this mind and speech, they embark on the mission to name, capture, catch and kill consciousness. To catch it, to conquer it. It's doomed to failure. So if we imagine that they received a wonderful send-off from their village and they were garlanded, tilak was put on them, arati was done, success was wished. So they went in broad daylight, but then not having found consciousness, because they are consciousness, and they came back and snuck back into their houses in the middle of the night when no one was looking. So there is really, each of these ways of looking at it comes up short. We have to understand that. It's not ideal. Because if we say theory of reflected consciousness, and if you want to impress your friends, you can say Pratibimbavada. Yeah, then, now I believe you. You must have gone to some Vedanta retreat. So this so-called, this as though theory of reflected consciousness comes up short, because it is just meant to be an aid to see that which is already self-evident. It doesn't lead you there. It is just an aid, a necessary aid, and I will be the first one to say, to admit a faulty aid, but nonetheless an aid. A faulty means a limited aid. It is subject to limitations of speech, of all these ways of looking, these metaphors and this imagery. All of this has some problems. Has that problem. So how can this consciousness not associated with anything, how can it be reflected? It is not reflected. That is the answer. But then why do you say it is reflected? Because we have to understand certain things which are really not understandable. So we say it is reflected as though reflected, whatever you want. Just like the crystal takes on the color of something behind it. So this is one way to look at it. Pratibimbavada, it is called reflected as though reflected consciousness, meaning that it is, we are seeing how it came about that this jiva, this individuation has happened. But really from the standpoint of the paramarthika satta, from the standpoint of the absolute reality, there is no individuation. But what about the Jagat, if you ask? Then the answer will be, what Jagat? Where is it? There is no Jagat other than consciousness, other than Brahman. And so there is really, what are we talking about? So from that standpoint, there is no ignorance, there is no need to talk about anything. All is well, all is one. But that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies in that duality which is unbearable. Dvaita is the problem. And so we craft certain lenses through which to see while pointing out the defects. So the defects of this reflected Pratibimbavada is, we can ask the question, what is the reality of the reflecting medium, aka pot of water? If it is as real as the sun, then we have problems. So, same thing like this. And then we have another vada, another theory also. The theory of, so that's why we get away by saying, we don't say theory of reflected consciousness, we add a little as though. The theory of as though reflected consciousness. Then you are in safe territory because you have put your clause as though. So you are free, Vedanta Shastra is free of being liable. No liability here. And then we have another vada, the theory of as though conditioned consciousness. So how can unconditioned consciousness be conditioned? Same way, as though conditioned. And this is so even to explain Pratibimbavada, we are using the as though theory of conditioned consciousness, as though conditioned consciousness, which in Sanskrit is called Avachedavada. Avachedavada. This is what this business is all about, Avachedavada. So, and that's where you will find the word upadhi being used. The word upadhi is used a lot. Upadhi and for some reason it is translated into another one of those words which mystify, limited adjunct. I've never understood that. Neither have I, understood adjunct nor limited. So what is this upadhi? It's almost as though like a container in which the uncontained is as though contained, so to speak. These are just modes of understanding. They have their problems, they will have their problems. We are talking of something that is impossible to express. The expression is impossible doesn't deter us because the understanding is possible even though the expression is difficult. Understanding happens because one happens to be self-evident, and so whether we talk about the theory of as though reflected consciousness or as though conditioned consciousness, we do get it. We do see how the one, so to speak, as though has become many. It hasn't really become many, but this is all from the standpoint, we cannot mix up the orders of reality. This is all from the standpoint of the transactional everyday reality. So then the next question is also very interesting. And what is that? who is the one addressed? Who is the one here in the text told to make the effort to discriminate between unconditioned consciousness and consciousness that is as though associated with the mind, etc., etc., and to be successful or not in this endeavor? Presumably, it cannot be the doer or the enjoyer, just like the reflection in a mirror is blind. Yeah, the reflection, you see, that's why we can't take it literally. The reflection in the mirror is blind. But then, consciousness being limitless upholds this individual, so to speak, with all the accoutrements, including Atma Ajnanam, including self-ignorance. So the consciousness upholds this individual, the consciousness is very much there, and so therefore, it does not address the karta or the bhokta per se, but it addresses that entity which clings on to its identification as the karta, the bhokta. So that is who the ahankara or the I notion. The I notion is addressed here. And even Adi Shankara was asked this question. He was asked the question, where is ignorance located? Because the mind, it was the same question that you ask. The mind is inert. How can it be ignorant? If it is inert, it cannot be ignorant. And if it is, what is the opposite of inert? Ert. No. Sentient. If it is sentient, then what is there to talk about? How can it be ignorant if it is sentient? And how can it be ignorant if it is insentient? Adi Shankara said that the ignorance rests in the nature, in the nature of the speaker. Meaning, where this question is coming from, that's where the ignorance lies. Meaning the ahankara. The ahankara is the one that is catching on to the ignorance, that is misidentified with the ignorance and all its broods that we talked about earlier. And so therefore, it may not be directly the doer, but the content of the doer, the content of the enjoyer, the content of every er, thinker, hearer, feeler. That is where the ignorance is. Very nice questions. So that is the person needs to be relieved of the ignorance, and it is the ahankara that enjoys the relief, because the ahankara doesn't die, cannot die in the wake of the knowledge. Even though people say, get rid of the ahankara, get rid of the ahankara, what they mean is get rid of the misidentifications. So then the ahankara, because the jnani is there with what is called a badhita ahankara, a sublated ahankara, which knows the truth of itself, which is a lightened, if not enlightened ahankara, lightened of the burden of misidentifying with every single thing that comes along. So that ahankara, says, thank God I have self-knowledge, or whatever it is. Even though it's a knowledge without the knower, the ahankara, can take some small credit there and nothing wrong there. But then, it's a sublated ahankara, so it doesn't get carried away by taking that credit. Then the last question for the day. Is it important to teach the family and celebrate 15 or so festivals at home and temple and every year as a part of our religion and culture, as different religions celebrate different festivals? Definitely, why not? Yes, it is important, because in the Hindu dharma, The celebrations are not just parties, although we do have a lot of parties and we do cook a lot, eat a lot, like every other culture, I suppose. The focus is not on food. That would be hard to believe, but still, trust me on this, at least originally, the focus is not on food. Because everything has meaning. It has meaning. So, like if we say the birthday of Lord Rama. Birthday of Lord Rama means what? Rama means that, that in which the yogis revel. So another name for consciousness is another name, it's wonderful. That self, which is the subject matter of revelry, that in which the yogis revel, that is Rama. So celebrating the birthday is just something wonderful because it is remembering, it's very meaningful, remembering who you are, remembering the truth of your nature. All the festivals are like that. There is a festival that is celebrated, I think, around the Shankranti time, harvest time, January, mid-January, in Kerala, and then it is, a mirror is decorated with a garland and a pottu, and bindi is put, and then it is, at that is the altar, and then you have all kinds of wonderful fruits, flowers, vegetables, everything kept there. And then the person who comes is invited to have darshan of Bhagavan. So you go stand in front of the mirror, align the bindi so that it is properly situated, and then you're looking at Bhagavan, you're looking at yourself as Bhagavan. So these are not small festivals, these are very, very meaningful, very profound, and they are designed, all of them are designed to, for a child growing in the tradition, to grow up healthy with a lot of self-respect and self-confidence. That is very, very important. So, and plus, of course, there is food and fun. So why not celebrate? And of course, the last 2 years have cast a pall because, one has not had the opportunity to go out to temples or some place like that, but still you can celebrate at home. You can celebrate as a family. Because the spirit of these festivals, to know and to share with the family and the children, it brings a lot of joy. There are stories associated with each thing, there are, there is a moral there is a point there, and many of the festivals there is, hidden gems of oneness and Vedanta there, if we look closely. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya, Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.